Be me Liam, 26, graphic designer at a mid-tier marketing agency called Nexus Creative. It's one of those open-plan office places with exposed brick and a perpetually broken espresso machine. Decent job, pays the bills, but it's a creative meat grinder. I'm good at what I do. Not a rock star, just a solid, dependable guy who knows his way around Adobe Suite and can turn corporate jargon into something visually appealing. My problem is I'm quiet. I'm the guy who puts his head down, does the work, and hopes someone notices. They usually don't. My boss is Mark. Mark is in his late 30s, wears expensive sneakers with tailored blazers, and has that perfect, blindingly white smile that only a man who has never known true self-doubt can possess. He's a master of corporate politics. He talks a great game, charms the clients, and is an expert at managing up. He's also a credit black hole. Good ideas go in and only his name comes out. It's subtle at first. Great work on the Vexler mock-ups, Liam. The team and I really knocked it out of the park. Fantastic concept. I took what the team brainstormed and really elevated it to the next level. The team was usually me, working until 10 p.m. The I was always him, presenting it in the boardroom the next morning. I've been at Nexus for 3 years. In that time, I've watched my best ideas get absorbed into the Mark brand. I never said anything. I'm not a confrontational person. I need this job. My rent in this city is no joke, and my student loans are a hungry beast that must be fed. My closest work friend is Sarah, a senior designer who's been here forever. She's seen it all. She'd often give me these knowing looks after meetings. He's got a talent for packaging, she'd say, which was her polite way of calling him a thief. Just make sure you save your drafts, Liam. Keep a paper trail? I always did. I had folders on my personal cloud drive, meticulously dated, of every project I ever started. It felt like a pointless insurance policy for a disaster I was too scared to ever report. For the past 6 months, I've been working on something of my own, a passion project. I called it Project Echo. It was a new campaign methodology focused on creating an emotional feedback loop with customers using interactive, user-generated content. It wasn't just a design idea, it was a whole strategy. A way to make a brand feel less like a corporation and more like a community. I poured my soul into it. Late nights, weekends. I built a whole presentation deck, complete with market research, target demographics, and a full suite of visual mock-ups for a hypothetical client. It was the best work I had ever done. And I was keeping it to myself, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment arrived on a Tuesday morning. An all-hands meeting was called. The CEO, Mr. Sterling, a man who usually only appeared during the holidays, was there. The air was thick with nervous energy. He announced the big one. We had a chance to pitch for Titan Automotive. Titan wasn't just a big client, they were the client. The kind of account that puts an agency on the map. Landing them would mean promotions, bonuses, and bragging rights for years. Mr. Sterling made it clear he wanted our most innovative, groundbreaking ideas. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This was it. This was the moment for Project Echo. I knew I couldn't just raise my hand in a meeting. Mark would shoot it down, or worse, steal it right there and then. I needed to be strategic. I practiced my pitch in the mirror for 2 nights straight, trying to sound confident. I booked a 30-minute one-on-one with Mark in a small conference room. The subject line was just campaign idea. I walked in, my hands clammy, clutching my laptop like a shield. "Hey Liam, what's up? Make it quick, I'm swamped," he said, not even looking up from his phone. "Hi Mark, I have something I think could be perfect for the Titan pitch." That got his attention. He put his phone down. "All right, let's see it." I connected my laptop to the monitor and started my presentation. For the first time, I didn't stumble over my words. I spoke with a passion I didn't know I had. I explained the psychology, the strategy, the design philosophy. I showed him the mock-ups, the user journey, everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. Mark just stared at the screen, his mouth slightly open. He looked at me, then back at the screen. A slow smile spread across his face. "Liam," he said, his voice full of awe, this is genius." My whole body flooded with relief. This isn't just a campaign, it's a new way of thinking. It's exactly what Sterling is looking for. He stood up and started pacing the room, buzzing with energy. "Okay, here's what we're going to do," he said, pointing at me. "You are a design wizard, but this strategy needs a heavyweight to sell it. Send me all the files. I'll take this, refine the business speak, package it perfectly, and present it to Sterling myself. I'll make sure you're front and center when it comes to the execution. We're a team, right? When I win, you win." He clapped me on the shoulder, his smile blinding. Full credit, buddy, I promise. You're going to be a star? I was hesitant for a second. Sarah's warnings echoed in my head, but the sheer force of his enthusiasm was intoxicating. He seemed so genuine. Maybe I had been wrong about him. Maybe he just needed something truly brilliant to champion. Blinded by hope, I went back to my desk and emailed him a link to a folder containing every single file for Project Echo. The email I sent had the subject, Project Echo files as requested. The body just said, "Here are all the assets, let me know if you need anything else." He replied almost instantly, "Got them, this is going to be huge." A week went by, I heard nothing. I'd see Mark in meetings and he'd give me a subtle wink, a little nod. "Big things are coming," he mouthed to me once. I was living on a knife's edge of anxiety and excitement. Then the following Monday, an email landed in my inbox. It was from Mr. Sterling. Subject, a new direction for the Titan pitch. My hands started shaking as I opened it. The email was gushing. It praised an incredibly innovative new strategy that was going to be the sole focus of our pitch. A strategy that would redefine our agency's creative potential. A strategy called the Echo Initiative. The email ended with, "I want to personally congratulate Mark for his visionary leadership and for developing this groundbreaking concept from the ground up. This is the kind of forward-thinking we need at Nexus." My name was nowhere, not a single mention. I read the email 3 times, then a 4th. The words blurred. The open plan office suddenly felt like it was closing in, the air too thin to breathe. It wasn't just that he took credit. He had erased me from my own creation. He had taken its name, its soul, and branded it as his own. I saw him walking toward the kitchen, laughing with another manager. Something inside me snapped. I stood up and walked over to him, my body moving on autopilot. "Mark, can I talk to you for a second?" He turned, his smile still in place. "Sure, Liam, what's on your mind?" I led him to a small, empty nook near the stairwell. "The email," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Sterling's email? Ah, yes, incredible, right? We're on the fast track, buddy. It says you developed it. It says it was your concept." Mark's smile tightened just a fraction. The warmth vanished from his eyes. "Liam, let's be real," he said, his voice dropping to a low, confidential tone. "You brought me a rough idea, a very good idea, don't get me wrong, but it was just clay. I'm the one who molded it, who gave it form, who turned it into something we can actually sell to a client like Titan. That's what a creative director does." "But you said, you promised I'd get credit," he sighed, a theatrical, patronizing sound. "And you will, you'll get to design the whole campaign. That's a huge opportunity for someone at your level. Look, you're a great artist, Liam, but you don't understand the business side of things. Presenting this was my job. Don't get possessive, it makes you look petty." He patted my shoulder. "Just keep your head down, do good work, and you'll go far. We're a team." He walked away, leaving me standing in the nook, my blood running cold. He hadn't just stolen my work. He had gaslit me, belittled me, and tried to make me feel grateful for the scraps he was throwing me. I stumbled back to my desk, my mind a mess of fury and humiliation. Sarah saw my face and instantly knew. She motioned for me to follow her to a coffee shop across the street. I told her everything. The whole sordid story. She listened patiently, her expression growing harder with every word. "I knew he was a snake, but this is a new low," she said. "You can't let this go, Liam. You have to go to HR. What's the point? They'll just protect him. He's a director. You have the emails, you have your original files. You have to try." She was right. Quitting felt like letting him win. Doing nothing felt like dying. With a sense of dread, I went back to the office and wrote an email to HR requesting a confidential meeting. The next day, I was sitting in a sterile, windowless room opposite Miss Evans, the head of Human Resources. She was a woman who seemed to be made entirely of sharp angles and beige clothing. She offered me a lukewarm bottle of water and a tight, professional smile. "So, Liam," she began, clicking her pen, "tell me what's on your mind." I walked her through the entire timeline. My personal project, the meeting with Mark, his promises, the CEO's email. I showed her the email I sent to Mark with the files. I explained that my original drafts on my personal cloud storage were all time-stamped months before our meeting. She listened intently, nodding and taking notes. I felt a glimmer of hope. She seemed to be taking this seriously. When I finished, she set her pen down and folded her hands on the table. "Thank you for sharing this with me, Liam. I understand why you're upset," she said in a carefully neutral tone. The situation you're describing, she continued, is a complex one involving creative ownership and standard management practices. My stomach sank. I knew that word, complex. It was corporate speak for "we're not going to do anything." Mark, as your director, is responsible for guiding and synthesizing the creative output of his team. His role is to take ideas and prepare them for executive review. The email you showed me where you send him the files actually supports this workflow. But he promised me credit, I insisted, my voice cracking. He told me it was my idea and he would make that clear. Was this promise in writing? She asked, her eyes unwavering. No, I admitted. It was a verbal conversation. She gave a small, almost imperceptible sigh. Well, Liam, without any written documentation, this becomes a he said scenario. It's your word against that of a department head with a long and successful track record at this company. She leaned forward slightly. My official advice to you is to reframe this situation. See it as a successful collaboration. You contributed a brilliant concept and your manager championed it up the ladder. That's how a team is supposed to work. Trying to claim sole ownership could be perceived as not being a team player, and that could impact your future here. I just stared at her, speechless. She had taken my story of theft and twisted it into a lesson about my own professional immaturity. I wasn't the victim, I was the problem. This was the outcome HR didn't expect. They expected me to be intimidated. They expected me to shut up and get back in my box. We will, of course, keep a confidential record of this conversation, she said, her voice softening as if she were delivering a kindness. But for now, I suggest you focus on the incredible work you'll get to do on the Titan account. I walked out of her office feeling more defeated than I had ever felt in my life. The system wasn't just broken, it was designed to protect people like Mark. I went home that night and opened my laptop to update my resume. I was done, I would quit. Let him have his stolen victory. I'd find another job somewhere else. As I was staring at the blank template, a notification popped up on my screen. It was a chat message from Sarah. How did it go? I typed back. Exactly how we thought it would. I'm the problem, apparently. A moment later, she replied. Don't you dare quit. I stared at the words. He's counting on you to do that, Liam. He's counting on you to roll over and disappear. Don't give him the satisfaction. Her words hit me harder than anything Miss Evans had said. She was right. Quitting was an escape, not a solution. It would mean that everything I went through, the work, the betrayal, the humiliation, was for nothing. A different kind of feeling started to bubble up inside me, pushing past the despair. It was cold, hard anger. If the system wouldn't help me, I would go around it. HR wanted documentation. They wanted a he said situation to become a he said, and here is a mountain of undeniable proof situation. Fine, I would give them a mountain. The next day, I went to work with a new sense of purpose. I was no longer a designer. I was a detective, and my own career was the case I had to solve. I spent my lunch break creating a secure, password-protected folder on my cloud drive. The first thing I uploaded was everything related to Project Echo. Every sketch, every draft, every mind map, all with their original, unchangeable metadata timestamps. I took screenshots of the file info highlighting the creation dates, then I started digging. I went back through 3 years of emails. I was looking for a pattern, and I found one, project after project. I'd send Mark a fully realized concept. A day later, an email from Mark to the client or to Mr. Sterling just had a stroke of inspiration. Check this out. It was death by 1,000 cuts, small thefts spread out over years. On their own, they were nothing, but together they painted a picture. I documented every single one. Next, I reached out to Sarah. I told her what I was planning. I need more than just my own story, I said. He couldn't have only done this to me. Sarah's face hardened. He didn't. She told me about a project from 4 years ago, a big campaign for a beverage company. She had developed the central slogan and visual identity. Mark had presented it as his own. She was so demoralized that she requested a transfer to a different team, which was a sideways move, not a promotion. She agreed to write down her entire experience in a signed statement. She also gave me a name, Alex. Alex had been a junior copywriter on Mark's team before moving to the marketing department. Mark rode him hard, Sarah said. Stole at least 2 of his big ideas before Alex managed to escape. I found Alex in the company directory and sent him a carefully worded message, asking if he had a few minutes to chat about old times on the creative team. We met for coffee. He was wary at first, but when I told him my story, his whole demeanor changed. A fire I hadn't seen before lit up in his eyes. "I knew it," he whispered, "that son of a bitch." He did the exact same thing to me with the Open Skies airline campaign. It was my tagline, my entire concept. He won an internal award for it. Alex was more than willing to write a statement. He even had the original Word documents on an old hard drive with timestamps to prove it. I now had 3 sworn testimonies. I was building an army. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unlikely source. Our team had a junior designer, Kevin. He was young, eager to please, and worshipped Mark. He saw him as a mentor. Mark was preparing for the big Titan pitch, and he was using Kevin to help him put the finishing touches on his presentation deck. I felt bad for the kid. He had no idea he was polishing stolen goods. One afternoon, I saw Kevin struggling with a complex animation in the presentation. Mark was getting impatient with him. "No, no, no," Mark snapped, loud enough for half the office to hear. "The transition has to be seamless. Don't you listen? It's like I have to do all the thinking around here." Kevin looked like he was about to cry. Later, I caught him in the kitchen, staring dejectedly into a cup of coffee. "Hey man, don't let him get to you," I said gently. "He's just stressed about the pitch." "I guess," Kevin mumbled, "I just don't get it. He keeps talking about the emotional feedback loop and the core user narrative, but he can't explain what he actually means." I asked him how he came up with the idea, and he just said it came to him in a dream. "A dream?" My ears perked up. "He can't explain it." "Not really. He just uses the same buzzwords over and over. When I ask for specifics, he gets annoyed and tells me to just make it look good." That was it. That was the smoking gun. Mark could steal the car, but he didn't know how to drive it. He understood the surface-level jargon, but he didn't understand the deep, strategic thinking behind Project Echo because he hadn't done the work. He didn't live and breathe it for 6 months like I had. My plan was no longer just about exposing the past. It was about exposing him in the present. The day of the Titan pitch arrived. The air in the main boardroom was electric. The Titan executives were there, looking serious and impossibly expensive. Mr. Sterling was there, along with the rest of our company's leadership. Miss Evans from HR was also present, sitting in the back, which I found interesting. I was required to be there to run the slideshow for Mark. My role was to be a human remote control, to be seen and not heard. Mark was in his element. He was gliding around the room, shaking hands, laughing his perfect laugh. He looked like a king in his court. He gave me a condescending wink as he walked to the podium. "Ready to make me look good, Liam?" I just nodded, my face a neutral mask. My heart was a drum solo against my ribs. The presentation began. Mark was slick. He was a performer. He moved through my slides, reciting the words I had written, hitting the key phrases with practiced ease. He was selling my dream, and he was doing a damn good job. The Titan executives were nodding. Mr. Sterling was beaming. As he reached the end, he put up the final slide, a beautiful mock-up of the Titan logo integrated into my campaign concept. "And that," he said with a flourish, "is the Echo Initiative, a new future for Titan Automotive." He paused for effect, letting the applause wash over him. "Truly impressive, Mark," the lead Titan executive said. "Very, very impressive." Mr. Sterling looked like a proud father. "Fantastic work, Mark, truly visionary. Any final words before we move to Q&A?" This was my cue, my moment. My hands were slick with sweat as I unmuted my microphone. "Actually, yes," I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the silence. "I have a few thoughts on the genesis of this project." Every head in the room swiveled to look at me. I could feel Mark's eyes burning into the side of my head. "Liam," Mark said through gritted teeth, his smile frozen on his face. Now is not the time. I ignored him and looked directly at Mr. Sterling and the Titan executives. "Project Echo, or the Echo Initiative, is deeply personal to me," I began, "because I'm the one who created it." A collective gasp went through the room. I began developing this strategy over 8 months ago on my own time. It was born from a belief that advertising could be more than just shouting at customers. Mark started to speak. "This is absurd. Liam is a disgruntled. Let him speak," Mr. Sterling said, his voice dangerously quiet. His eyes were locked on me. This was it. No turning back. I minimized Mark's slideshow, and on the main screen I brought up a link to my secure cloud folder. "Here," I said, my voice gaining strength, "are the initial concept files for Project Echo dated last March." I clicked open the first file. A rough sketch, a mind map with the metadata clearly visible on the screen. I clicked through a dozen more, showing the entire evolution of the idea. The room was dead silent. I presented this fully formed concept to Mark 3 weeks ago in confidence. I was hoping for a chance to be part of this pitch team. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, a significant misunderstanding seems to have occurred regarding the project's true authorship. Mark was sputtering. He's lying, this is a fabrication, he's a junior designer trying to sabotage a major pitch. Just then, a calm voice spoke up from the side of the room. With all due respect, sir, he is not lying. It was Sarah. She stood up, her hands clasped in front of her. I saw Liam's Project Echo presentation 2 months before he ever showed it to Mark. The entire strategy, the name, the core concepts. They were all his. Mr. Sterling's face was a stone mask. He looked from me to Sarah and then to Mark, who was now pale and sweating under the boardroom lights. And then, as if on cue, Mr. Sterling's phone buzzed on the table in front of him. So did the phones of every other board member. It was the email I had scheduled to send 5 minutes into the queue and a session. The subject line was simple: documentation regarding the Echo initiative and management practices. The body of the email contained a brief, professional summary and a link to the secure folder. Inside that folder was everything: my time-stamped files, the signed, detailed statements from Sarah and Alex, the documented history of Mark's credit stealing. It was a mountain of undeniable, time-stamped proof. Mr. Sterling read the email preview on his phone. He looked at the subject line, then looked at Mark with an expression of pure ice. The Titan executives were watching this corporate drama with a mixture of shock and fascination. Mr. Sterling stood up. "We will be taking a brief 15-minute recess," he announced to the room. He then turned to Mark and Miss Evans. "Mark, Miss Evans, my office, now." They were gone for what felt like an eternity. I just sat at the presentation table, my adrenaline slowly starting to fade, replaced by a profound sense of emptiness. I had done it. But what now? Sarah came over and put a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" "I think so," I said. "I feel strangely calm." The boardroom door opened. Mr. Sterling walked back in, followed by the Titan executives. He was not with Mark or Miss Evans. He walked to the podium and addressed the clients first. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to offer my sincerest apologies for that internal matter. It is clear that we have had a failure in our management chain and it has been dealt with." He then turned his gaze to me. His expression was no longer icy, but one of genuine curiosity. "And second," he said, his voice resonating through the room, "I would like to properly introduce the real mind behind this brilliant campaign. This is Liam. And I, for one, would love to hear him walk us through his original vision." Every eye was on me. I took a deep breath, walked to the podium, and for the second time that day, I presented Project Echo. But this time, it was different. There was no fear, no hesitation. I spoke from the heart. I told them not just what it was, but why I had created it. The passion I had hidden for so long came pouring out. When I finished, there was a moment of silence, and then the lead Titan executive started to applaud. Slowly, the rest of the room joined in. We won the account. Later that afternoon, a company-wide email announced that Mark was no longer with Nexus Creative, effective immediately. Mr. Sterling called me into his office. Miss Evans was there and she couldn't seem to make eye contact with me. "Liam," Mr. Sterling began, "first I want to apologize. What happened to you was unacceptable, and it represents a failure of leadership on my part for allowing a culture where someone like Mark could operate for so long." He slid a piece of paper across the desk. "It was a new contract. We are creating a new position for you," he said. "Creative lead on the Titan account. You will report directly to me. This comes with a 40% salary increase and a significant bonus for landing the client." I was stunned. I just stared at the paper. "You did something extraordinary today, Liam," he continued. "You didn't just save your own idea. You stood up for the integrity of this entire agency. You had the courage to speak up when the system failed you. That, to me, is the definition of a leader." I accepted. When I walked back out to the main office, everything felt different. As I approached my desk, Sarah, Alex, and a few other designers stood up and started a slow, quiet clap. It wasn't loud or disruptive, just a simple, powerful gesture of respect. Kevin, the junior designer, came over to my desk. "Man," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "That was awesome. Can you show me how you came up with that feedback loop idea sometime?" "Of course," I said, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled a real, genuine smile. I sat down at my desk in the same chair in the same office, but I wasn't the same person anymore. I was no longer the quiet guy who just did the work and hoped someone would notice. Someone had finally noticed, and it was me.